Oh, you bastard! Winston, £3.5 up this morning.
Oh, come in, the girls just well.
Owned it. Welcome. Get it up here.
Hello, boys and girls, lads and lassies. Sorry about that. The system just went bang as we went live. I don't even know if you can hear me at the moment. So if you can hear me, put something in the chat while I try and get my camera. Right. Can you hear me? See if I can get the camera working now. The camera's working. Hello, boys and girls, lads and lassies, and welcome back. And sorry about that. Try to actually be a wee bit smart, and what happens? The new mic blew the system. So I just feel a wee bit underdressed for tonight's show. I'm on my Todd, and look what happens. Just goes to show how I need people. But there you go. So I'll set my camera back up a wee bit, and hopefully that's all better. So thank you for joining us, and we're talking about Some Like It Hot. Very gangster movie, and I must admit it is one of my favourites. It's got some great stars in it. Marilyn Monroe, Jack Nicholson. I'm a wee bit flustered, as you can see, because the system blew. Marilyn Monroe, Jack Lemmon, Tony Curtis, George Raft. You know what I mean? How's that for a group? The names maybe. I'm actually going for Spats Jack in it. So there you go. So just call me Spats for tonight. But I'll try and calm down and have a wee bit of iron brew to soothe my nerves. Terrible. So, how's the new mic sound? This is what blew the system. New mic. Tested it, worked fine. Switched it on. Just as I went live, I was taking the camera off, or putting the camera on, and with the camera and the new mic, it just went bing, and that was me going. Perfect timing. So, and now the dogs are going off in one. They must have found the bodies under the floor. But, so, Some Like It Hot. This is one of my favourites. Yeah, I need a Miss Moneypenny. I think I actually need a Daphne and a Josephine. But different stories. I did say to my wife I was actually going to dress like this, and she says it would be more appropriate if I wore one of her dresses, one of her wigs. And I says, nah, that's Saturday. But that's a different story. So, are the dogs louder? Right, so it's this new mic. Turn the mic up. How's that for? That's the echo. I can turn the echo all the way up, but the mic should be fine. So I'm hoping it's actually not picking up ambient noise. So, thank you for joining us again. Right, since I'm on my Todd, and if you can hear me, let me know. Or if you can't hear me, or if I'm quiet, I'll mess around with the system. So, my favourite part of this movie, I'll start there. Favourite part is with Daphne and what's the character called? It is Osgood. Osgood Fielding the third, Joey Brown. Their date, from their date onwards, right at the very beginning, their date with the dancing when he comes back with a cha-cha-cha, cha-cha-cha, and then how he falls for him, and then just even at the bit at the boat ride at the end, I can't have children. Oh, we can adopt them. I'm good. Nobody's perfect. To me, that small story inside the larger love story between Tony Curtis and Marilyn Monroe, who is at her hottest in this one. No denying it. But this is some good stuff. George Raft, typical gangster part he played. He's played a lot of good gangsters in them all. And I must admit, the whole all-round story, if you actually describe it, it's ridiculous. These two guys, musicians, during the roaring 20s, during Prohibition, witnessed a murder. And to hide, they dress as women and join a band. And then the two of them fall for the same girl, but the fast talker starts pretending he's a millionaire, where the other one falls for a millionaire who thinks he's a real woman. And then they all find out that one isn't a millionaire. Not only she not a woman, he's not a millionaire, and she's fine with it. And the other one finds out the millionaire finds out the other one isn't a woman, and he's fine with it as well. The basics of the story sounds ridiculous, but the what's the word I'm looking for? The execution of it was superbly done. You got four, well, I would say five, counting Joe E. Brown, and even if you count Pat O'Brien as the flatfoot, the copper, there was six, but four really good actors in this, and I think this is one of Marilyn Monroe's greatest performances. I've seen a few of Marilyn Monroe's, and some of them are good, some of them are not. But this one, I think she just nails it. She plays the naive blonde bimbo with a heart of gold and a good singing voice. But she certainly shows her assets in this movie, which we cannot deny that at the time when this was released, what was it, 1959, this was classed as a sex comedy. Nowadays, it's very light. It's not sexual as the way we would perceive a sex comedy. You look at nowadays, a sex comedy would be like American Pie, where it's a lot more graphic, ruder, and nakedness all over the place. In this, it is quite light-hearted humour, but there is some adult themes. They talk about sleeping around. They talk about loose morality. And yes, of its time, I think, even them stoating around with their underwear, their night dresses on, and just it was classed as a sex movie or a sex comedy. But it was just so well done that you can see why this movie has got such a following. How many people have actually turned around and says, "Well, some like it, didn't really like it. Didn't really like Marilyn Monroe. Tony Curtis wasn't as good. Jack Lemmon has done better." I think all of them played the parts so well. So I'm actually going to look at the chat and see if there's any questions. So if I'm looking that way, it's just because I'll need to move the chat to that window so I can actually see it better without me actually constantly turning sideways. So maybe, right, there you go. So let's look at the chat. Any comments, anything you like about it? I know I see Not Brian. It's one of his favourite comedies of all time. And yes, the start of this, I'll need to trim that part out where it just went, oh, bummer. Right, so let's see. Is it the Scottish voice? Yes, Miss Moneypenny. Your name's Bond, James Bond, or Brooke Bond, or as Russ Abbott used to say, Basilton Bond. But you didn't miss anything. You did. Being late was probably the best thing that happened in this stream because it started off a wee bit weird. Technology is a wonderful thing. I'm glad I don't work with it. Oh, wait, I do. Bummer! I think I'm going to have to take my new camera, my new mic, outside and show them what Spats do to things that get on his wicks. Yeah, I just rewatched it again just before. I'm hoping to do some clips of it, but I know it might be a wee bit tricky. A, copyright. B, some of the, because of the way it was filmed, yes, in black and white, but some of the scenes just looked a wee bit sexualized, so you know fine well it's going to have certain parts. And then there's the music. The part she does, the Betty Boop song, was superb. I would like to get that one clipped. So, and hi Peter, thanks for joining us. But what's it saying? Some like it hot, open to critical and commercial success. And it is. I think it's definitely one of my top 10. And considering Calamity Jane's on that list as well, and as for comedies, there's a few comedies I would say are greater. And there's one or two gangster movies, but one of these days I'll do my top 10 and actually talk about each of the movies, but different genres. For comedies, it is definitely, I would say it's probably second or third on my list for comedies. She's sexy in this. She looks absolutely superb. In 1927, the Prohibition era Chicago Joe is a jazz saxophonist played by an irritable, impulsive ladies' man. His anxious friend Jerry is the jazz double bass player. Yep. And the two of them played it so well. The first part, I must admit, it stuck with me was the cops were in arresting everybody at the speakeasy. And as they're actually, the police are crowding everybody, the two of them just walk past them and go upstairs. It's almost like, I wonder why the police let them go. I think this is one of those ones. Some like it, Spot. Enough of that. Let's see. No, I think Curtis and Lemmon played that well. You know how they knew they had got the parts right, is they tried out different makeups and stuff like that, and they wanted to check to see how realistic they looked and how passable they would be. Not realistic, how passable they'll be. They actually got all done up, togged out the lot, and went down to not the ladies' toilets. They went down to the ladies' powder room, because at that time in the studios they had a place, and the ladies would go. Not only they would do for powdering up and stuff like that, and they went in there and sat and chatted to some of the ladies and some of the other actresses and stuff like that, the extras, just to chat to them. And they says not one person actually clocked who they were. And as soon as they came out, they says, spot on. We can pass in these parts without it being too obvious. Like, you look at it now, what was that one? White Chicks? That one where the two guys dressed as the two girls and they had all the plastic makeup on and stuff like that, just looked a wee bit too much. Whereas you had Mrs. Doubtfire, because he was aging himself, you could get away with that. But still, I think it shows that then it was done with makeup. Nowadays, they don't use makeup to do that. What they do in the films and that is use prosthetics to actually enhance or change the features. And obviously, you can see how it works better with the makeup. And it just goes to show what a good makeup artist can do with anybody. Because you can't say under any circumstances Jack Lemmon looks like a nice looking woman. But with the makeup, you can understand why Osgood fell for him or her. So, what's this? Oh, watching it, thinking about it from memory. Yep. Yep. George Raft, Edward G. Even some of the his lawyers, like Mike Mazurki, he played. He always played the gangster or the gang. They basically had that type of face. There was a couple of the gangsters that their faces were just, you could understand why they were cast as gangsters, because they just looked that the ugly mug. It's this. It's one of these movies you could watch over and over again. I can't remember any of the scenes where she played the uke. Yeah, there was the one of the first scenes, which is a superb scene. It is the one, just, it's the first music together when they're all practicing. They're all practicing. She sings and dances in the train car while they're doing the practice, and it was really good. That was the time. It was just not long after, because the two boys said they'd come from a conservatory, so they all thought they were fancy, and they were playing it quite slow, and they were asked to jazz it up a bit, and that's when they jazzed it up a bit. That's when she played the uke and started singing. Was she? I didn't even realise. I didn't. Well, actually, She was actually one. You notice a lot of the other extras was when they were having the party in Jack Lemmon's cabin, which calling it a cabin, it's one of the beds. You know, what I mean, they always show the old ones where it was his beds, 2 rows, and you basically they slept in it, and they were all climbing in there. There was about 7 or 8 of them in this one wee cubicle, which was a bedroom. So yeah, she would have been in that. I must admit, I didn't even notice. There's parts of it, yes, I would say they're very sweet. However, to each other, they're not as sweet. They're sweet to people around them, but you look at Curtis. He was a gambler, and he was constantly trying to, like, for instance, when Jack Lemmon says he needed to go and get his tooth done, Tony Curtis says, "Oh, you're going to be selfish, are you? Because we've borrowed money from the girls in the dance troupe. We owe our rent. We owe the dry cleaners. We owe the restaurant that we've been eating at all that money." And he says, "Okay, we'll pay some of them off." He says, "No, just give it to me, and I'll take it to the track, and we'll 10 times our money because it's running 10-1, and it's a sure thing." Which they lost. Then the next thing they actually look at their jackets, try to get their jackets. They says, "But we'll get 20 jackets," and it lost again. And then they was talking about actually putting their instruments in. The thing it gave them a living. They were talking about putting that in because he wanted to gamble, because he always thought he was going to win. So to each other, they weren't as nice. They were just basically two people who just seemed to get on, but there was still the bickering backwards and forwards. And yep, and that's exactly what I said. Just makeup, no prosthetics. It looks a lot better. Aye, that's right. He was a professional wrestler, but he's a really good one as well. Some of the movies he was in, he always just played the gangster. Even the comical ones, he either played a wrestler in them as well. Did he not play the wrestler in one of the Laurel and Hardy ones? Oh no, it was a boxer, I think. With I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm sure. Yep. But he did play. He played some really tough, brutal characters, as in Machine Gun and all that. Basically, he was a gangster. But he also played in some comedies where he played into his thuggish look. And it wasn't Lauren Hardy, was it? No, Charlie Chaplin. He did some with Charlie Chaplin. Yeah, he was definitely doing the Cary Grant voice. And I think it would have been better if he'd actually not got glasses from someone who was obviously so blind, because you see the part where he's actually putting them down to see the girls on the beach, but after that he's looking through them as if they don't really affect him, and it just sort of took that away. If he'd just got a pair of glasses that somebody was just using them for reading glasses, and it didn't imply that the guy was so blind that he could hardly see without them, then he's wearing them in the thick glasses, and then he was acting as if he could see no problem. But that's these type of things that you notice, but at the time, it's superb. Yep. And he, same idea. He played in a lot of the ones. He always either played the cop or a Fed or something like that. He always played those type of characters. With a name like O'Brien, of course, he was actually a Scottish descent. But anyway, as you know, my favourite part of it, I've said, is the Daphne and Osgood relationship and silliness and that. But I I loved the best in this by far is Marilyn Monroe. I think it's one of her finest performances. Marilyn actually just oozes sex appeal. She oozes talent because the singing, she's got a few very humorous songs, and you could just see when she's singing and dancing up and down the aisle, it looks like she's having fun and just putting it all out there. And then when she's been told that the love she's actually her new beau, as she calls him, has left her, she goes into that very sad phase, and her song is just so telling and so melancholy. It is just superb. To me, if I had to put all Marilyn's movies out there, I would put this at the top of the list. I think Marilyn shines in this movie. And yes, due to the caliber of actors around her, it basically brings out a better performance, because you look at Jack Lemmon. I think he brought out Tony Curtis's better performance, but I think Tony Curtis brought out Jack Lemmon's better performance, because Jack Lemmon's done some absolutely fantastic stuff. But can you imagine Daphne and Josephine played by two different actors, or any one? Like, if you take Josephine out there, right, and you've got Jack Lemmon, you put in Walter Matthau, it wouldn't have been the same, for obvious reasons, because Walter Matthau's he's got more looks more like Mines than like a Josephine. But you put him with any other actor of the time, I don't think it would have worked. Let's just say Dick Van Dyke. You imagine Dick Van Dyke playing the Josephine role. I don't think the two of them would have had. And Dick Van Dyke's a really good comedian, but I can't see the two of them having that same type of chemistry. I think the chemistry between Lemmon and Curtis actually worked and complemented each other. And the same idea, I think their chemistry obviously rubbed off and actually improved Marilyn's role. But then again, I think their role got improved for the simple fact is they've got Spats in there. You know what I mean? It's just when you're working with people like George Raft and Jack Lemmon, you're going to try your hardest. You're going to actually try and make sure you're knocking it out the park. And I think it just looked amazing. Jack Lemmon, yeah. And I can't deny, Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon playing in The Odd Couple, playing in Grumpy Old Men were fantastic. Some of their early stuff as well, they did some other stuff together, which was really good. I think it could have worked with the two of them because of the chemistry they had together, but I think you couldn't have Walter Matthau in a part like that because he's too ugly. And I heard rumours about 4 years ago, and I'm glad the rumours turned out to be a load of rubbish, is they were talking about remaking that. Can you imagine them remaking it nowadays? I think they can't remake it because the humour about two guys dressed as women for the time, it was taken as a joke. They didn't do it, but they basically, even the two of them, highlighted the fact is some of the things that women go through that guys don't even think about, even guys like themselves don't even think about. But nowadays, taking out all the gender recognition stuff, but the fact is the humour at laughing at the guys or the way they treat the women would be just out of there. But I'm glad it never came to anything. It was about 4 years ago, so maybe 5, 2018, 2019, aye, with I heard the rumour. I was hoping to God it was just somebody just trying to wind me up, because we were obviously talking about Some Like It Hot, and they'd said, "Oh, do you hear they're actually talking about a remake?" And I just didn't even want to look it up just to see if they were just winding me up or not. I just assumed they were winding me up. But with a rumour like that, and you could imagine they were actually starting to do all the remakes, and you thought, no, but it's a movie it can never remade. There's some movies out there, Blazing Saddles, they can't remake that today. Things like that. There's certain movies that can't be made. And she had the beauty and the sweetness of character. She just basically, even though she looked like the typical blonde bombshell, she always came across, even some of the other ones where she came across with sweetness, and she wasn't dumb blonde. Because even in this, she sort of classed herself as the dumb blonde in it. But you look at it when she's chat up the millionaire, she's got the intelligence. She knows the difference between the varsity, and she knows about the different schools. Even though some of it was from the two characters, Daphne and Josephine, she could still carry a conversation, even with someone who didn't know what he's talking about, and throwing out words. She was actually throwing it out there as well. So I think she definitely had that type of character. Yeah, Jack Lemmon is just superb. One of these days, we'll just need to do a Jack Lemmon stream as well, because there's certain movies or certain actors you could just do a stream talking about. Even some bit part actors, you could do that. I quite agree. No remakes. Never, never. It is. I'd say, I didn't realise that. I thought they'd actually appeared in some other stuff. Not actually as stars together, but appeared together. But there you go. 9 song composed. Right. Right. What were the 4 songs? I mind you, there was the last one. Well, she sang the melancholy one. Then she sang the Betty Boot one. And there was 2 others. Yeah. The very first one where she's singing, she's playing a ukulele, and the one when she's going out on her first date. I thought it was only 3, but when I think back on it, it actually definitely does. Anyway, this movie, it's a great musical, even though there's not a lot of music in it, but there is some. It's a great comedy. It's a great gangster movie. It's a great love story as well. This covers so many genres, and it's just a wee bit from everything, and it just works so well that it's amazing. I'm just actually trying to see something here. Take that back. It's IMDb. Just something caught my eye. I'm actually just trying to see it, so I need to actually fire in there. Hold on a wee sec. Just something that popped up, and I thought that can't be true. So Norma Jean is her date of birth. That's June the 1st. It was June the 1st. I thought somebody had actually put it was actually March the 1st. I thought it was actually coming up, but it's not. It's just, it's an old article. It just so happened to pop up. But yes, Norma Jean Mortensen from Los Angeles County. But it just goes to show someone who had such an ordinary life, as she always put it, started off as just your Norma Jean. It just plays it so well. Right, what's this? The good thing is, Peter, yes, I like to rewatch things when I'm reviewing them, but a lot of the stuff I was actually watching, I remembered because the story was so compelling that, yeah, you may have actually seen it a year ago, 5 years ago, but there's still a lot of the movie when you're talking about it, it flashes back. You know what I mean? So let's see. Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis put 2 films together, Some Like It Hot and The Great Race. The Great Race, that was the one with Terry Thomas as playing the Dick Dastardly type character. Or was that Monte Carlo or Bust I'm thinking of? You need to remind me of that one. The Great Race, I'll need to actually get a reminder on what that one is. It is there is a few movies that there's a lot of movies I love. Yeah, I mean, and there's a few movies I watch regularly. They're on my schedule once or twice a year. Some of them 3 or 4 times a year. Like Judge Dredd is on 3 or 4 times a year, but there's certain things I watch every year. White Christmas for once, that's my Christmas movie, obviously. My New Year movie is It's a Wonderful Life. But a fun movie, if I just want to sit back, relax, this goes on. If I want a bit of stupid humour or more macabre humour, there's different ones. So, like, if I'm wanting a more macabre, zany humour, I'll put on Ash v the Evil Dead or one of the 3 movies. Usually Army of the Dead, because I find that funnier rather than the other 2, which I find gory funny. Whereas Army of the Dead is just stupid, zany funny. But talking about that, this is for my Saturday box opening. It's actually going to be my pick of the week. I've not even opened it. Look. So stay tuned for that for Saturday. That's a special one. Came through today. I was hoping it would be turning up before Friday, and it turned up today. So yes. And I didn't even open it because I want to wait until Saturday for my pick of the week to open it, because that's the only thing I'm opening for my pick of the week. Even though I've got a box full of stuff there, that stuff's getting less. That's what I'm expecting, and that is going to be my pick of the week. So you need to stay tuned on Saturday for that one. Anywho, Those Magnificent Men, The Flying Machine. I love that movie. See, I like those ones like the Monte Carlo or Boss, The Magnificent Men, The Flying Machines. Is The Great Race, is that the same one? Was The Great Race the same one that I'm thinking of? It's similar idea along to the lines of Monte Carlo or Bust. It's basically wacky races. And Terry Thomas played the Dick Dastardly character. I'm trying to remember who. The guy actually rode with him always reminded me of Peter Lorre. He always played his Muttley character, who was always, but it wasn't. He's a smaller guy, black hair, but he always reminded me of Peter Lorre. I can't even remember his name. But sidetrack. I'll need to actually check out The Great Race. No, A Mad World was the one when they're trying to find the treasure and they're all trying to run, drive to it. That one had Mickey Rooney in it. And that's when they end up under the big W with the trees. And remember, they're actually at the end, they're actually trying to count who's to get the gold. And I'm trying to remember the character. He went 1, 2. He started himself, went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And he says, "Hey, you counted yourself twice." He says, "No, I counted him twice because he found it." And he tried to, I mean, I'm trying to remember. It's Mad World, Mad World, Monte Carlo Bus, Magnificent Men in a Flying Machine. Those are all type of movies where it basically had a similar premise. It was just a case of a race and fun things happened. Because I remember the Tony Curtis in it. He played did he not play almost not so much a spoiled brat, but a rich young guy who was out to make his way. And if that's a great race, or I keep thinking it's the Monte Carlo or bust. But you don't need to get it there. I can't remember it off the top of my head. Yeah. See, the thing is, there's a couple of movies over the last, well, actually, there's only one movie over the last 5 years I think I've actually found fun to, if you include Boss Level, was the one with Bruce Campbell, and that was Black Friday. It was about the alien one, but it was Bruce Campbell, so anything with Bruce Campbell's always fun. But in the last 20 years, there's a few movies I think are good, comedy-wise. However, the further you go back, the more. I think from the late 50s to the late 80s were the golden age for very good humorous comedy where it didn't take itself seriously, where it actually just was fun for the sake of fun. So they would have a laugh and a joke with different people, different characters. You would always see one of the Scotsmen would be wearing a kilt and stuff like that. You would always see a typical American. He would always be the cowboy type. He would always have the cowboy hat and all that. The exaggerated ones, so you would always have certain, like the German one, they would always have chaps on or something like that. Whereas nobody took anything seriously, and they just didn't actually look at how they didn't take offence to it. And another one I meant to say, Little Napoleon. Now, I need to get this name right because I can never get it as Nemir Persoff. He's been in quite a few. I recognise his face, but I could never remember how to pronounce his name. Nehemiah. Nehemiah Persoff, I think, is the correct pronunciation of his surname. First name, I've probably absolutely murdered that name, which I do apologise because great actor, but even in this is Little Napoleon when he would do this, God, and he would do he always gets himself away, but we actually think you need to be strong. But he gets, and I mean, it was that. It was basically he's doing his flip flop of the gangsters and stuff like that, and turning the big enormous hearing aid down. To me, there was not many characters in this that didn't work. Even the side characters, like the booking agents, right at the beginning, where they're getting in and out. He's the girl who had stood up for a date because he was out having a date with another girl, and then try to smooth her back into getting what he wanted. And then you've got the booking agent who's trying to book the females, and he's just because you're the wrong shape, your hair's colour's wrong, you're the wrong. They're looking for women, and they have to. The characterization in each of them, even if they were only in for a couple of minutes, were really good. So let's see what else have we got on. Well, she's crazy. It's not your fault. Yeah, I mean, she doesn't think it's funny. Well, keep her away from Monte Carlo or Bus, or it's those magnificent men, they're flying machines, things like that. Just don't let her watch them, because if she says they're no funny, then you know she actually is nuts. So this is actually going to be a quick one. How's that for bad? Because when I'm talking to myself, I seem to either talk too fast or just push it all out there and get it over and done with, and then go, um, but all I can say is, as they said, or as what you call them said, Spats said, I'm just digging out the quote so I don't mess it up, because I hate a messed up quote. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? One of my favourite quotes in the movie, and it was one of Spats's ones. No, it wasn't. The favourite quote in the movie is a Sugar quote. Is story of my life. I always get the fuzzy end of the lollipop. And when I'm doing a stream on my own, it's the story of my life. I always get the fuzzy end of the lollipop. So I can talk and talk and talk, but eventually I start repeating myself. And I can talk and talk and talk, but eventually I start repeating myself. And then I can talk and talk and talk, but eventually I start. Right, we'll get on with the show and we'll finish off. So, who needs a? She does need a humour transplant. I thought you were actually going to say I needed a humour transplant. Oi, oi, oi. Anyway, thank you for joining us. This hides my baldy head a lot better. And I might actually start wearing, I keep on thinking I'm going to start wearing the hat, because I got pulled up. I was on a work call today, and my Iron Brew hat was sitting just at my shoulder. And one of the guys leaned forward and says, "Does that say what I think it says?" And you remember my Iron Brew hat? It sort of said, I says, yes. He says, well, make sure if you're on a Teams call with one of the bosses, he can't see that behind you. So I had to put it away. So considering I do like to wear my hats and I get a chance to, I've had my pork pie hat on, I've had my bowler hat on, I think even had my cowboy hat on. There is a few other hats I might actually start digging out and start wearing the hat a week. Need something to actually make me look interesting rather than anything else. And you know what to say, if I can't smart up, I might smart off. Anyway, I'm going to finish up there. So thank you all for joining us. It is, I know, a very quick talk about it. The review of this movie is, if you don't like Some Like It Hot, then Some Like It Mental. It is a good, funny, musical gangster movie. It covers so many genres. It is unreal. Marilyn Monroe is hot in this. Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis are hilarious. And George Raft is George Raft in this. He is very scary. He plays the typical gangster, and he's the type of gangster you don't want to bump into. And then you've got what is it? I keep forgetting the guy's name who played Osgood, Oswald. Joe E. Brown is just humorous in it. He's played some crazy characters because of the way he can distort his face. There is a lot of good characters in this. There's a lot of good humour in this. It's a good love story. It's a good gangster movie. It's a good musical. All round, it is a great movie. So what I would do if I was you, and lucky you, you're no me, so at least you're 50-50 on that one, I would go and see if you can get it. Good thing is, I've already got it. I don't even need to go and find a streaming service. The bad thing is, there's no extras with this one, which is just unfortunate. It is just the movie. It's got the theatrical trailer, and that is it. So it is a shame they didn't have any extras, because I would love to have seen some behind the scenes, some outtakes, some even documentaries about the 3 star, talking to the stars about it. Even if it's only a case of it might have been just Jack Lemmon or Tony Curtis talking about making it and working with Marilyn Monroe, because obviously we know what happened to poor Marilyn. But I would love to see more on the DVD. So if they ever re-release it and they actually add things, documentaries and bits and pieces about it, I'm going to get it. So until next week, which we are doing Groundhog Day next week. So join us for that. But join us on Saturday for Let's Talk Geeky, where you'll have myself, hopefully Roman, you'll have Colin, hopefully Windology, hopefully Kelly Inch, and you never know, there's a good wee box to be opened, which is going to be a nice surprise to me as well. I know what's in it, but I know what's in it doesn't necessarily mean I know how good it looks or anything about it, because I've only seen pictures of it. So you know what pictures can do. My wife saw the picture of me and she thought I was handsome, and then she met me. But that's a different story. So until next week, remember, ladies and gents, I ain't old. I'm classic. PJ Maybe out.